University, finally Trump and Carson are now tied for first place in Iowa, the state that will be first to make its presidential preferences known. The two men followed by Carly Fiorina, Ted Cruz, and Scott Walker, who incidentally was leading this same poll just about a month ago. His numbers have sharply declined. And did you notice, however, what these top three contenders have in common? They are all political outsiders. Chris Stirewalt is our Fox News digital politics editor, and Howie Kurtz is host of Fox News' Media Buzz. Gentlemen, welcome to you. Chris, Dr. Carson making a dent in Trumpapalooza, which is, he's ahead in every national poll and has been winning in Iowa for some time now. And what a turn for Dr. Carson.
Well, given the fact that I've been told about 1 bajillion times in the last 6 weeks that Republicans are angry racists, it seems surprising that a mild-mannered, kindly African-American doctor is increasingly the number one preference of this party. So I think the media narrative, not to poach in Howie's turf, but I think the media narrative about this election is wrong. And I think that Carson's rise as a kind, very conscientious, patriotic soul, it tells us a lot about the attitude here, and I think it has everything to do with what you said, which is this is an electorate, this is a party that wants anything but somebody who represents more of the same.
Okay, so the one narrative has been it's angry white Republicans who are behind Donald Trump, but you know what, they're apparently behind Ben Carson, so your point is the narrative that it's all these racist Republicans isn't really holding up. The second point, though, to your point, is the other narrative we've heard about Trump's rise in the polls has been about how they are angry and they want someone who's angry. Forget race. That their anger is reflected in the rhetoric of Donald Trump. Dr. Carson could not be, he's pretty kind and gentle in his approach.
Right. He's obviously fed up. When you listen to him, when you talk to him, as you've interviewed him, he obviously, when he was doing his takedown on the Black Lives Matter movement, it wasn't like he was a shrinking violet. But the way that he talks and the way he comports himself is wholly different, not only from politicians, but also from his fellow Iowa frontrunner, Donald Trump. It's a total study in contrast, and it both seems to be working on it.
All right. However, Howie, Dr. Carson has said some controversial things. It hasn't been all kind and gentle. I mean, like the whole stuff about like prison makes you gay, and we have a lot of rhetoric about President Obama that he speaks to like Saul Alinsky and Lenin and so on, and that's a lot of people believe that, but it's also controversial.
And when Ben Carson made those mistakes in the early months, I thought, okay, this is a very nice guy who's out of his depth. He talked about Obamacare, including slavery and so forth. But he learned from those mistakes, Megan. When I interviewed him, he told me that he realized that if he used that kind of incendiary language, people didn't hear him. They didn't hear the rest of the answer. And so he has fixed that problem, which I think threatened to undermine his candidacy early on.
What has happened, Chris, in the past 2 weeks to shoot him to the top of the polls? We had a Republican debate, and Ben Carson did very well in the polls thereafter. They clearly liked his debate performance. But what's happened in the past week or so to justify this equal footing between Carson and Trump?
Well, you have this August entropy. You have Trump, who has blown everybody's doors off. All of the people who have held office, elective office now or before have been dwarfed, and everything is topsy-turvy, and people are looking at this anew. And I do think it's hard to overstate how well Carson did in the eyes of voters who were just meeting him for the first time. There is no Republican politician who is more popular. It don't mean that they all are voting for him as their first choice, but there is no Republican politician more popular in the state of Iowa, and maybe nationally now, than Dr. Ben Carson.
He's in Iowa. He has almost a universally positive opinion of him. At 81% of Iowans have a positive opinion of Dr. Ben Carson. Carly Fiorina, 67% favorable. Donald Trump, 52% favorable. So it means that a lot of Iowans don't necessarily like Mr. Trump, but they're still behind him. Here's just politics today. Howie, let me ask you. You say that he hasn't come under scrutiny necessarily, that he was a front runner. But has anybody in the Republican field? There's so many of them. How can anybody be subjected to so much scrutiny?
It is true. There aren't enough reporters on the planet to cover all of these candidates. But I think Ben Carson, to a certain degree, has flown under the media radar, getting about 1,000th of the attention lavished on that Trump guy. And that has helped him position himself as somebody who could be, let's say, a less bombastic alternative for people who set up in traditional politicians. But the lack of media scrutiny based on this poll and this attention making, I guarantee you it is going to change soon.
I got to ask you, Chris Tyrell, about Scott Walker. Yikes! Down to 7%. He was leading his poll in July. What happened?
Well, he and Marco Rubio found themselves, as they had been all along, actually trying to bridge the gap between the conservative base of the Republican Party that's also acceptable to the establishment. That's a hard place to fly, but both for Walker and for Rubio, the game is going to be long, so keep your eye on both of them to show up later.
All right, guys, and I'll keep my eye on YouTube to show up later as well. That's just a special tease for the audience. I'll find out later. Well, we mentioned the breaking news at the top of the hour, how the Black Lives Matter group is now pushing back after taking serious heat following the execution-style murder of a Texas deputy, and then the march the next day that looked like this. We'll show you what that group is now saying about this chance tonight. Then we'll speak with Sheriff Hickman, who today had to speak with the widow of that slain officer. Plus, moments ago, the State Department releasing thousands of Hillary Clinton's emails. It happened at 9 p.m. Eastern, that she had kept secret on her private email server for years. We're pouring through the material right now, trying to figure out why we have an after-dark release of this stuff. I'm sure it's nothing that has any big concern. Ed Henry is here with a live report on what we're finding. And Republican presidential candidate Carly Fiorina fighting hard to get onto the main stage of the next presidential debate. The Cali File breaks down her chances of doing it, and if she's successful, who's out? Coming up.
It's outrageous. By the way, this is a Republican president. You think that the RNC would play some leadership role here?
You need to tell me the mighty Walter. I can help you. You can help me. There's just one rule. You can't kill anybody, Jimmy.
This is a dangerous, dangerous world right now. This president is allowing Iran, the largest state sponsor of terrorism in the world, to have a glide path towards a nuclear weapon. A strong American military is not built to wage war, it is built to prevent war. I am the only candidate who has actually been responsible for fighting terrorism and has prosecuted terrorists and put them in jail. And if I become president, we're going to protect the homeland, not lower our defenses against it.
American leaders are responsible for the content of this advertising. A real Mahindra owner tells us why he loves his tractor.
You'll never buy another tractor if you ever drive one. Tommy Henry does everything I want it to.
Become the next Mahindra owner with nearly 6,000 cash back for select customers, or 0 down, 0 payments, and 0 interest till 2016, plus our 5-year warranty.
I would definitely recommend the world's #1 selling tractor, Mahindra.
Hurry in for Red Tag Saver.
Need new tires? Right now at Pep Boys, when you get 3 Falcon, Cooper, or Hankook tires, you get your 4th tire free instantly. Plus, get no interest when paid in full in 12 months on your Pep Boys credit card. Trust me, to get you there.
Dick and Liz Cheney on the record inside Hillary's email scandal. Plus, as the former VP think Biden should run, critic can't miss insight.
This summer, let HGTV take you to paradise. Wow, look at this. There's now one bad angle from this house. And feel those hidden vibrations. Having our own private island is unbelievable. My God, that's beautiful. Sun, sand, and sunlight. Absolutely stunning. Oh my gosh. Okay, this is fun. This is perfect. Escape to Paradise every Sunday night beginning at 8 only on HGTV.
Me, Miami, go. More adventures await in the Sunday Passenger Lexus GX. See you on Lexus Day.
Breaking tonight after a Texas deputy is gunned down in what appears to be a cold-blooded execution, the Black Lives Matter movement is now taking to the airwaves saying, "Don't blame us." This all started Friday when 47-year-old Darren Goforth, a white officer, was putting gasoline in his cruiser at a station just outside of Houston. He was approached by a suspect described as a bald African-American man. Without a word, that suspect opened fire, putting 15 shots into the officer, killing him on the spot, leaving his wife, a widow, and his 2 young children without a father. The sheriff is with us to respond to the Black Lives Group in a moment, but first, Trace Gallagher gets us up to speed on this investigation. Trace?
Maybe there's still no precise motive in the shooting death of Deputy Darren Goforth, but authorities believe he was attacked because he was wearing his uniform. Deputy Goforth was putting gas in his patrol car when surveillance video shows a man walk up behind him, put a gun to the back of his head, and pull the trigger. When the deputy fell, the killer continued firing until the gun was empty. He then sped away in a red truck. A truck matching that description was later found at a home a few miles away, where 30-year-old Shannon Miles admitted owning the truck and having a gun. Watch.
Take a pistol to the firearms lab and get ballistics done on it, and they get a match that this is in fact a firearm that fired the casings that were left at the scene.
Miles, wearing a yellow jumpsuit indicating he's a high-security inmate, was formally charged with capital murder today. In 2012, after being charged with aggravated assault with a deadly weapon, Shannon Miles was found mentally incompetent and sent to a mental health facility. Harris County Sheriff Ron Hickman believes the execution of Deputy Goforth is linked to the nation's growing anti-police rhetoric. Listen.
This rhetoric has gotten out of control. We've heard Black Lives Matter, all lives matter. Well, cops' lives matter too. So why don't we just drop the qualifier and just say lives matter and take that to the bank?
But at the scene of the killing, hundreds showed up wearing blue to pay their respects and to leave donations to Deputy Goforth's family. What?
They're here for us. They're here to keep the peace. They're not here to hurt anybody. They're here to help. And we need to show them more appreciation.
Goforth's wife issued a statement that reads in part, quoting, "My husband was an incredibly intricate blend of toughness and gentility. He was loyal, fiercely so, and he was ethical. The right thing to do is what guided his internal compass. I admired this quality perhaps the most, for that was what made Darren good, and he was good." Texas Governor Greg Abbott has ordered flags in Harris County and at the state capitol to fly at half-staff. Mary.
Trace, thank you. When Sheriff Hickman spoke about the murder of his deputy over the weekend, he said the rhetoric from the Black Lives Matter group is out of control, and he blamed the group for promoting what he called a dangerous environment. And tonight, members of the Black Lives group are challenging that.
The uproar over this rhetoric does not match the uproar that we see when a black person is killed every 28 hours by police. We need police reform, otherwise the climate in this country is going to continue to be an us versus them climate.
Let's not forget that the police have killed over 700 people this year. There are only 9 days this year where the police haven't killed somebody, and only 3 states where the police have not killed someone. The only charge rhetoric that I've heard has been about accountability for the police.
Joining me now, Sheriff Ron Hickman of Harris County, Texas. Sheriff, thank you for being here, and condolences on your loss. We appreciate your time tonight. Let me ask you to respond to that message saying, you know, the rhetoric that they have been issuing, these Black Lives Matter marches, is basically appropriate